The room went silent when Dutch Schultz pulled the gun. Not the kind of silence where the music stops. The kind where hearts stop beating. Where 50 people in an underground speakeasy suddenly realize they're about to witness a murder or become witnesses that need to be silenced. It was October 20th, 1935. The Blue Moon Club, a basement establishment 3 floors beneath a legitimate bakery in midtown Manhattan. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and the sweet smell of bootleg whiskey. On the small stage, Dean Martin had been crooning his way through That's Amore, his voice smooth as Tennessee honey, his charm working the room like he was born to it. But now the music had stopped, and Dutch Schultz, the Dutchman, the Bronx Beer Baron, the man who'd killed over 30 people without losing a night's sleep, had a .45 automatic pointed directly at the young singer's head. What happened in the next 3 days would change everything, not just for Dutch Schultz, who'd end up bleeding out on a restaurant floor in Newark, but for the entire relationship between organized crime and the entertainment industry. This is that story, the world before the gun. To understand why Dutch Schultz pulled a gun on Dean Martin, you need to understand what Dean Martin was doing in that world in the first place. In our timeline, Dean Martin didn't become famous until the 1940s. But in this story, in this version of history, things went differently. Young Dino Crocetti had caught a break 3 years earlier, in 1932, when a talent scout heard him singing in a Cleveland speakeasy. By 1935, he was one of the hottest acts in New York City, the kind of singer who could pack a room with high rollers and connected guys. And in 1935 New York, if you were packing rooms with high rollers, you were in business with the mob. There was no getting around it. The clubs were mob-owned. The booze was mob-supplied. The protection was mob-provided. If you wanted to perform, you worked for them. It was that simple. Dean Martin worked for the Luciano family. Specifically, he was under protection of Frank Costello, the political fixer, the man they called the Prime Minister of the Underworld because he settled disputes with handshakes instead of bullets. Costello saw entertainment as the future. Legitimate money laundering through legitimate businesses. Nightclubs, theaters, recording studios. All clean on paper, all connected underneath. Dutch Schultz saw it differently. Dutch was old school. He made his fortune on beer, numbers, and pure intimidation. He didn't understand why mob guys were coddling singers and dancers when they should be out breaking heads and collecting debts. To Dutch, entertainment was a side hustle at best, a distraction at worst. But there was more to it than philosophy. There was money. Specifically, there was territory. The Blue Moon Club sat right on the border between Dutch's Harlem operations and Costello's Midtown empire. Technically, it was neutral ground, a place where different families could mix, where business could be discussed over drinks and good music. But Dutch had been making noise about expanding south, and the Blue Moon, with its wealthy clientele and nightly take of 10 grand or more, was exactly the kind of operation he wanted under his control. And Dean Martin, the golden-throated kid from Ohio, was the Blue Moon's main draw. Control Dean, control the club. Control the club, control the territory. Dutch had approached Dean twice before, once in September, offering a better deal if Dean would start performing at Dutch's clubs up in Harlem. Dean had politely declined. Then again in early October, this time with less politeness and more implied threat. Dean had still declined, explaining that he had a contract with Costello's organization, and he was a man who honored his contracts. Dutch Schultz was not a man who handled rejection well. The night of cards and loaded guns. October 20th started like any other Sunday night at the Blue Moon. The club opened at 8 p.m. By 9, the place was packed. Judges and cops mixed with bookmakers and button men. Society women in fur coats sat 3 tables away from loan sharks counting money. In the underground economy of Prohibition-era New York, everyone was welcome as long as they had cash and kept their mouths shut. Dean Martin took the stage at 9:30 p.m. Looking sharp in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people made in a month, he opened with Just a Gigolo, his voice effortlessly carrying over the murmur conversation and clinking glasses. The crowd loved him. They always did. There was something about Dean, a combination of talent and charm and danger that made him magnetic. Dutch Schultz walked in at 10 p.m. with 4 of his guys. Big men, Serious men, the kind who cleared rooms just by entering them. But the Blue Moon had seen plenty of tough guys. The maitre d' seated them at a table in the back, brought them a bottle of the good scotch, and left them alone. Dutch wasn't there for the music. He was there for a card game. In the private room behind the bar, a high-stakes poker game had been running since 7 p.m. This wasn't your nickel-ante neighborhood game. This was serious money. Thousands changing hands on every deal. The players were a mix of connected guys from different families. Neutral ground gambling where your last name didn't matter as much as the size of your bankroll. Dutch had been invited. He'd been winning too. Up about 20 grand by midnight. But then his luck turned. Within an hour, he was down 40,000. Then 60. Then 80. The thing about Dutch Schultz was that he was paranoid on his best days. And when he was losing, when he felt like the universe was conspiring against him, that paranoia turned toxic. He started seeing ghosts in every shuffle, cheating in every deal. His face got red. His voice got loud. His hand kept drifting toward the gun in his jacket. This game is rigged, Dutch announced at 1 a.m., throwing his cards down on the table. The other players looked at each other. Nobody wanted to call Dutch Schultz a liar. Nobody wanted to be the guy who started something that ended with bodies in the Hudson River. Dutch, said Sal Moroni, a capo from the Genovese family who was running the game. You've been playing cards for 30 years. You know how it goes. Sometimes you win. Sometimes you lose. Tonight you're losing. That's the game. That's underscore to the game, Dutch snarled. He stood up so fast his chair crashed backward. Somebody's sending signals. Somebody's marking cards. This whole thing is a setup. From the main room, through the thin walls, they could hear Dean Martin singing Pennies from Heaven, his voice smooth and easy, completely unaware of the storm brewing 20 feet away. Nobody's cheating you, Dutch, Moroni said, trying to keep his voice calm. But if you want to quit, quit. Take your losses and walk away. We'll settle up tomorrow. Dutch Schultz didn't walk away from anything. That was his problem. His pride, his reputation, his entire identity was built on being the toughest guy in the room, the one who never backed down, never surrendered, never admitted defeat. I want my money back, Dutch said quietly. Every dollar. That's not how poker works, Moroni replied. Dutch reached into his jacket. Every man in the room tensed. But Dutch didn't pull his gun. Not yet. Instead, he pulled out a roll of bills, threw it on the table. One more hand. Double or nothing. Everything I lost tonight. You win. You take this and what's on the table. I win. I walk out even. Moroni looked at the money, looked at Dutch, calculated the odds of refusing, and what that would mean. One hand, he agreed. They dealt the cards. Dutch got 3 kings. A good hand. A winning hand. He pushed all his money into the center of the table, confident now, feeling like his luck had finally turned. Moroni laid down a full house. Kings over tens. The room froze. Dutch Schultz stared at the cards for 10 seconds. 20, 30. His face went from red to purple. The veins in his neck bulged. His breathing got heavy. You cheated, Dutch said, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't. You underscore cheated. Dutch's hand shot into his jacket. Came out with a .45 automatic. He didn't point it at Moroni. He pointed it at the door leading to the main room. Everybody out. The 4 other players scrambled for the exit. But Dutch moved faster, got to the door first, his gun swinging wildly. Nobody leaves. Nobody underscore moves. And then, because Dutch Schultz's brain worked in ways that made sense only to Dutch Schultz, he kicked open the door to the main room and marched out into the club, gun in hand, rage radiating off him like heat from a furnace. Dean Martin was in the middle of Blue Moon, singing about loneliness and hope, when Dutch Schultz walked up the stage with a loaded gun. The confrontation. The thing about performers is that they're trained to keep going no matter what. A fight breaks out, you keep singing. Someone passes out drunk, you keep singing. Even when a crazy man with a gun is walking toward you, some part of your brain tells you to keep singing, because that's what professionals do. But Dean Martin wasn't that stupid. When he saw Dutch Schultz coming, gun out, eyes wild, Dean stopped mid-verse. The band stopped playing. 50 conversations stopped happening. The only sound was a click of Dutch's shoes on the wooden floor and the hiss of someone's sharply inhaled breath. Dutch climbed the 3 steps onto the small stage. He was shorter than Dean, stockier, but the gun made him 10 feet tall. "You," Dutch said, pointing the .45 at Dean's chest. "You're working with them. You're a part of this." Dean raised his hand slowly, carefully, the way you might try to calm a rabid dog. "Dutch, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just here singing. I don't have anything to do with any card game. Don't underscore lie to me." Dutch's voice echoed through the silent club. "Costello sent you here. You're the distraction. You keep everyone happy and entertained while they cheat me in the back room. How much did he pay you? How much?" In the audience, Dean could see faces he recognized. Tony Accardo, sitting at a table near the bar. Vito Genovese, smoking a cigar in the corner. Meyer Lansky, always the quietest man in any room, watching this unfold with calculating eyes. These weren't just customers. These were the men who ran New York. And they were all watching to see what Dean Martin would do when Dutch Schultz put a gun in his face. "Nobody paid me anything, Dutch," Dean said, keeping his voice steady, reasonable. "I sing. That's what I do. I don't know anything about your card game, and I don't want to know. I'm just trying to make a living." "Making a living on my territory," Dutch shot back. "This club? This should be mine. You should be working for me. But Costello got to you first, didn't he? Made you his golden boy. Probably promised you things. Protection. Money. Maybe a piece of his action." Dean could feel sweat running down his back, but his face stayed calm. He'd learned early in life that men like Dutch Schultz fed on fear. Show fear and they devour you. "I work for the club," Dean said. "Whoever owns it, I sing. That's the deal. If you owned it, I'd sing for you too. I'm not taking sides. I'm just singing songs. Nobody's neutral." Dutch said. The gun was steady now, no shaking, just cold intent. "You're either with me or against me. And if you're not with me, then you're part of the problem." From the back of the room, Frank Costello's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Dutch put the gun down. Costello had been sitting at his usual table, the one in the far corner where he could see both exits. He stood now, buttoning his jacket, walking slowly toward the stage. He didn't have a gun in his hand. He didn't need one. Frank Costello's power came from his brain, not his trigger finger. "Stay out of this, Frank," Dutch warned, swinging the gun toward Costello for just a moment before aiming it back at Dean. "This is between me and your singing boy. There is no between you and him," Costello said, still walking, his voice calm and reasonable, like he was discussing the weather. "Dean's got nothing to do with your poker losses. You know that. You're upset, you're angry, I get it. But pointing a gun at an entertainer in a neutral club, that's not how we do business. Don't tell me how to do business." Dutch's voice cracked. "I built my empire when you were still stealing fruit from push carts. I earned my place in this city, and I'm not going to let some pretty boy singer and his boss take what's mine." Costello stopped about 10 feet from the stage, hands visible, posture non-threatening. "Nobody's taking anything from you. Dutch, you lost money in a card game. It happens. It happened to me last month. Happened to Meyer the month before. You lose with grace, and tomorrow you win it back somewhere else. That's the game." "The game is rigged," Dutch insisted. "The game is just a game," Costello replied. "But this," he gestured at the gun, "this is a violation. This is you threatening a civilian under my protection in a neutral establishment. This brings heat on all of us. You know the rules, Dutch. You help make the rules." Dutch Schultz stood on that stage for what felt like an hour, but was probably 15 seconds. The gun pointed at Dean Martin's heart, his finger on the trigger, his entire reputation and future balance on a decision that could go either way. Dean, to his credit, didn't beg, didn't plead, didn't cry. He just looked at Dutch Schultz with steady eyes and said something that changed everything. "You pull that trigger," Dean said quietly, "and you're not killing an entertainer. You're killing the future. The commissions try and go legitimate. Clean businesses. Legal money. Entertainment is how you do that. You kill me. You're not just killing one singer. You're killing what we're all trying to build. Dutch's eyes flickered, not with fear, with understanding. Because as crazy as Dutch Schultz could be, as violent and paranoid, he wasn't stupid. He understood power. He understood business. And he understood that the world was changing. The old ways, the beer wars, the territorial disputes, the bodies in the street, that era was ending. Thomas Dewey and his prosecutors were making the old business model impossible. The future belonged to men like Costello, who understood how to make crime look legitimate, how to wash dirty money through clean businesses. And entertainment was the cleanest business of all. Dutch lowered the gun. Not much, just a few inches, enough that it wasn't pointing directly at Dean's chest anymore. "This isn't over," Dutch said, but his voice had lost its edge. "You tell Costello. You tell all of them. This isn't over." He turned and walked off the stage, his 4 guys following him behind him. They left the Blue Moon Club at 1:47 a.m. on October 21st, 1935. Dutch Schultz had 3 days to live. The commission meets. The next morning, before most of the city had finished breakfast, the commission convened an emergency meeting, not at the Waldorf Astoria, not in some fancy hotel suite, in a warehouse in Brooklyn, surrounded by crates of imported olive oil that everyone knew was a front for bootleg liquor. 7 men sat around a table made of shipping pallets and covered with a tablecloth someone had liberated from a closed restaurant. Lucky Luciano at the head, Meyer Lansky to his right, Frank Costello to his left, Vito Genovese, Joe Bonanno, Tommy Lucchese, and Joe Prophesy completing the circle. "We have a problem," Luciano said, lighting a cigarette. Dutch pulled a gun in a neutral club, threatened an entertainer, violated about 6 different agreements we have about how we conduct business. "He's been getting worse," Meyer Lansky said. "More paranoid, more violent. Last month, he threatened a judge. The month before that, he wanted to kill Thomas Dewey. Now he's pulling guns on singers. The man's out of control." Frank Costello leaned forward. "It's more than that. It's what he represents. We're trying to move into legitimate business. Entertainment unions, real estate. We're trying to make money without the heat." But Dutch still thinks it's 1925. He still thinks you solve every problem with a gun. "So what are you suggesting?" Genovese asked, though everyone in the room already knew the answer. "I'm suggesting," Costello said carefully, "that Dutch Schultz has become a liability. He's unpredictable. He's dangerous. And he's going to bring heat down on all of us. Yesterday, he pulled a gun on Dean Martin in front of 50 witnesses. Tomorrow, he might actually pull the trigger. And then what? We have cops and feds investigating a murder at a club we're all connected to. We have headlines. We have attention. We have everything we're trying to avoid." Luciano took a long drag on his cigarette. "Anyone disagree?" Silence around the table. "Anyone want to defend Dutch? Anyone think he deserves another chance?" More silence. "Then we vote," Luciano said. "All in favor of sanctioning Dutch Schultz?" 7 hands went up. It was unanimous. "How do we do it?" Bonanno asked. "Clean," Meyer Lansky said. "No connection to any of us. No trail. Make it look like a robbery or a rival gang. Nothing that brings heat back to the commission." "Who handles it?" Lucchese asked. "I have people," Genovese said, "from out of town. Nobody knows them. Nobody can connect them to us. They come in, do the job, disappear." Luciano nodded. 3 days. Give Dutch 3 days to settle his affairs. Make peace with whoever he needs to make peace with. It's more than he deserves, but we're not animals. 3 days and it's done. Frank Costello stood up. "I need to tell Dean. He deserves to know he's safe." "Tell him." Luciano agreed. "But make sure he understands. He never talks about this. Not to cops, not to reporters, not to anyone. He saw nothing. He knows nothing. That's the deal." "He'll understand," Costello said. The meeting adjourned at 11:30 a.m. on October 21st, 1935. Dutch Schultz had 2.5 days left. The final days. Day 1, October 21st, 1935. Dutch Schultz knew he was a dead man. You didn't pull a gun on someone under commission protection and walk away clean. Not in 1935. Not in the new organized crime structure that Lucky Luciano had built. He spent the morning liquidating assets. Cash from his safe deposit boxes. Jewelry from his various girlfriends. His expensive car sold to a fence for half its value. By noon, he had $127,000 in small bills packed into 2 leather suitcases. His plan was simple. Disappear. Take the money and run. Mexico, maybe? Or South America. Somewhere far from New York. Far from the commission. Far from men with guns who decided he was a liability. But Dutch Schultz couldn't just disappear. He had too much pride, too much ego. He'd built an empire, and running away felt like admitting defeat. So instead of getting on a boat or a train, he spent the afternoon trying to make peace. He called Lucky Luciano. No answer. He called Frank Costello. His secretary said he was out. He called Meyer Lansky. Lansky's wife said he was traveling. Every door was closed. Every bridge was burned. By evening, Dutch was drunk in a speakeasy in the Bronx, surrounded by his few remaining loyal guys, complaining that anyone who'd listened at the commission had gotten soft, that men like him built his business, and now they were being pushed out by accountants and lawyers and singers. They're making a mistake, Dutch slurred, his 8th whiskey doing nothing to calm his paranoia. They need guys like me. Tough guys. Real gangsters. Not these politicians in suits. One of his men, a young button named Joey No, leaned in. Boss, maybe we should just go. Get out of town tonight. Screw the commission. Start over somewhere else. Dutch looked at him with bloodshot eyes. Run? I don't run from nobody. This is my city. I built this. And if they want me gone, they're gonna have to come and take me out. Day 2, October 22nd, 1935. Dutch woke up with a hangover and a revelation. If he couldn't make peace with the commission, maybe he could make them afraid. Maybe he could remind them why Dutch Schultz was someone you didn't mess with. He spent the day putting out word on the street. Anyone who took a contract on him would face retaliation, not just from Dutch, but from everyone loyal to him. He reached out to old allies, guys from the beer wars, veterans who remember when disputes were settled with guns instead of votes. He tried to build an army. It didn't work. Most of his old allies had either died, gone to prison, or gotten smart and joined the new system. The few who were still around didn't want to start a war with the commission. The math was simple. Dutch Schultz versus the 5 families wasn't a fight. It was suicide. By afternoon, Dutch was alone except for 3 guys, his driver, his bodyguard, his accountant, a little guy named Otto Berman who kept Dutch's books and always wore the same gray suit. They drove around the city aimlessly, Dutch in the back seat, giving increasingly paranoid orders. Don't take that street, it's a setup. That car's following us. Pull over here, I need to think. At one point, they ended up in front of the Blue Moon Club. It was closed during the day, the door locked, the windows dark. Dutch stared at it for 5 minutes without speaking. Boss, his driver said. Where to? I should have killed that singer, Dutch said quietly. Should have pulled the trigger. Then they'd know I'm serious. It's not too late, the bodyguard suggested. But it was too late. It had been too late the moment Dutch lowered that gun. In the underworld, showing mercy wasn't seen as strength. It was seen as weakness. And weak men didn't survive. They drove to Newark that evening. Dutch had a girlfriend there. A showgirl named Frances who didn't ask questions and didn't mind that he showed up drunk and paranoid. They spent the night at her apartment, Dutch jumping at every sound, convinced every car that passed was coming for him. You should leave town, Frances said around midnight. Everyone's saying you're in trouble. Everyone should mind their own _ business. Dutch replied. Day 3, October 23rd, 1935. Dutch Schultz woke up knowing this was a day. He couldn't explain how he knew. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was paranoia that had finally lined up with reality. But when he opened his eyes that morning, he knew men with guns were coming for him. He could have stayed in Frances's apartment, barricaded the door, made them work for it. But Dutch Schultz had never hidden from a fight in his life, and he wasn't going to start now. "I'm going to the Palace Chop House," he told his 3 guys at breakfast. "It's neutral territory. Nobody'd be crazy enough to hit me there." The Palace Chop House was a restaurant in Newark that catered to connected guys. Good food, private booths, management that knew when to look the other way. It was the kind of place where you could conduct business without worry. Except Dutch Schultz wasn't conducting business anymore. He was just waiting to die. They arrived at 9 p.m. The restaurant was moderately busy. A few tables of locals, a couple of mobsters Dutch recognized from the old days. They took their usual booth in the back, ordered steaks and whiskey, tried to act like everything was normal. At 10:17 p.m., Dutch went to the bathroom. It was a single toilet, no window, just a door and a mirror and a sink. He stood at the urinal, probably thinking about Francis or Mexico, or all the choices that had led him to this moment. He never heard the front door open, never heard the footsteps, never knew that 2 men in long coats had walked into the Palace Chop House with shotguns hidden under the fabric. They shot his bodyguard first. One blast to the chest killed him instantly. Then his driver tried to reach for his gun, took both barrels to the face. His accountant, poor Otto Berman, who'd never hurt anyone in his life, got hit in the shoulder trying to run. And then they waited. Dutch emerged from the bathroom 30 seconds later, probably wondering what the noise was, why the restaurant had gone quiet. He saw the bodies, saw the blood, saw the 2 men with empty shotguns and fresh shells in their hands. He tried to run, made it 3 steps. They shot him twice in the stomach and once in the chest. He went down hard, hit his head on a table on the way down, and lay there on the floor of the Palace Chop House bleeding out while the 2 men calmly reloaded and walked out the front door. Dutch Schultz died 22 hours later in the hospital, delirious with fever and pain. His last words were a rambling mess about a boy in the attic and "please help me" and other things that made no sense. The cops wrote it all down, hoping for a deathbed confession, but there was nothing useful. Just the final confused thoughts of a man who'd lived by the gun and died by it. The aftermath. Dean Martin heard about Dutch Schultz's death the next morning. Frank Costello came to his apartment personally, sat him down, poured him a drink, and explained what had happened. "It wasn't about you," Costello said. "Dutch had been a problem for months. But what happened with you? That was the final straw. That showed everyone he couldn't be controlled anymore." Dean took a long drink of whiskey. His hands were shaking slightly. Did I get him killed?" "Dutch got himself killed," Costello replied. "He pulled a gun in a neutral club. He violated the rules. He made himself a liability. What happened to him was inevitable. You just happened to be there when he crossed the final line. Should I be worried?" Dean asked, "Should I be looking over my shoulder?" Costello shook his head. "You're under commission protection. Nobody touches you. But Dean, you never talk about what happened. Not to cops, not to reporters, not anyone. You were at the Blue Moon singing songs when Dutch had a mental breakdown. That's the official story. You stick to it. You live a long, happy life. You understand?" Dean understood. He went back to singing at the Blue Moon Club. The audiences loved him more than ever. There was something appealing about a guy who'd stare down Dutch Schultz and live to sing about it, even if nobody could talk about what actually happened. Within a year, Dean Martin was one of the most sought-after entertainers in New York. Within 5 years, he'd make the jump to Hollywood. Within a decade, he'd be a movie star, a recording artist, a legend. And through it all, he never once mentioned the night Dutch Schultz pulled a gun on him. The relationship between organized crime and the entertainment industry changed after Dutch's death. The old school guys, the ones who solved problems with violence, gradually got pushed out or killed. The new guard, men like Costello and Lansky, built empires through legitimate businesses. Casinos, nightclubs, record labels, movie studios. They understood what Dutch never could, that the real money, the lasting power, came not from fear, but from being part of the system. From making people want to give you their money because you were entertaining them, not because you were threatening them. Lucky Luciano went to prison in 1936, but the commission survived. It evolved. It adapted. It became the blueprint for modern organized crime. Structured, corporate, run more like a business than a gang. And somewhere in all of that, in the shift from the old ways to the new, there was a moment on a stage in a Blue Moon Club when a singer looked down the barrel of a gun and saw the future. Not his own death, but the death of an era. Dutch Schultz pulled a gun on Dean Martin, thinking he was defending the old ways, the ways of violence and intimidation and pure force. What he didn't realize was that by doing so, by threatening an entertainer in a neutral club, he was proving exactly why the old ways had to die. 3 days later, Dutch was dead. But the future he tried to kill, that lived on. The entertainers kept entertaining. The commission kept evolving. And Dean Martin kept singing, his smooth voice filling smoky rooms with joy and hope and music, blissfully unaware that he'd been part of the moment that changed everything.